Hello and welcome to For Book Lovers Only, where we interview talented authors and talk about some amazing books. My name is Rob Brown, your host and chief book lover, and today we have a very special guest. She is a retired teacher. She's written multiple books. We're actually going to talk about three today: Border Danger, Border Love, and What's in a Name. Please welcome to the show, Alice Greenhowe Wootson. Alice, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Now, you're coming down from Philly, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how was the traffic coming down on 95 South?
Not bad. We were after rush hour. Tony knew what he was doing. Tony's my son.
That's your son, okay.
So it was great. Great drive.
Good, good. Glad to hear it. So you are a retired teacher, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. It's really interesting because a lot of the authors that we have on the show either are current teachers or retired teachers. From your perspective, tell us a little bit about the kind of connection between teaching and writing a book.
Well, when I retired, I had been the reading teacher. Philadelphia had a reading specialist in each school. So I was a reading specialist there, and one of the things that I did was teach word processing to the kids. And some of my books do take place, they have teachers as their main characters. One of them, the kids are in it. At My Home for Christmas, the kids are in it. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, the only connection is that some of them are teachers. But I started writing. I guess probably most teachers do a lot of reading. Right. So I did a lot of reading, and after a while you say, hey, I think I could write one of these.
Okay. Now, at what point in your teaching career did you say, like, it was kind of the beginning, or after a couple of years, like, hey, I want to kind of try my hand at writing myself?
After, I'm going to date myself, after computers became available. In fact, my school was designated as a magnet school for computer science. No one had computers at home. We had computer labs in school, and then we had computers, the original laptops that we would loan out to the parents, and the kids could keep it for X number of weeks. And I was teaching word processing, and it kind of evolved from there. I wrote my first book. Has not been published because it was on a typewriter. And I refused to do all that typing over again. Besides, I don't think it was worthy anyway.
And tell us a little bit about your first book. Like, when did you write it?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember when I wrote that, but the first one that was published in 2000.
Okay, and which book was that?
Snowbound with Love.
Oh, tell us about that.
Okay, what triggered it was, I'm from Philly. In February, the weather forecaster said that we were having our 17th snowstorm of the year.
Of the year?
Of the year. And that gave me the idea. So Snowbound with Love starts in a blizzard. And to really set it, I had her in the Pocono Mountains, which are in Pennsylvania. And that's a setup there. She is doing an interview with somebody, and she's driving home. There's a reason why she has to drive home. She can't afford to stay longer. And she slips off a driveway. She's trying to get out of the blizzard, and she suffers a head injury. She's on somebody's driveway, and she suffers amnesia. And he comes down. His dog alerts him. He comes down and rescues her and takes her to the house. And they are snowbound for a while. When they find out what her identity is, she's someone he holds responsible for some tragedy in his life, and that separates and ends them.
Wow, that sounds like a really intriguing book.
They do get back together.
Oh, they do?
It's a romance. My books are romance.
No, a romance.
They're all
novels.
romance, right.
Okay. What drew you to that genre?
Because I like happy endings. And romance books have happy endings, but you have a whole wide variety of romance books.
Right. And who are some of your favorite, like, romance writers? Or do you read other romance writers, or do you try to?
I do, but I don't really. Beverly Jenkins is the one that is really my favorite. And I don't have any other necessarily favorite authors. I like a good story. I look at a book, read the back, which everybody does, and decide whether or not I'd like to read the story.
I see. And today we're going to talk about three of your books, Border Love, Border Danger, and What's in a Name. So kind of tell us a little bit about the Border series. I'm very intrigued by that.
Okay, usually something triggers the start of the idea for a book.
Right.
Sometimes it's like the weather forecaster. Sometimes it's a headline. And in this case, we were wintering in Texas, in Brownsville, Texas, my husband and I. And we spent 3 winters there. And I was really amazed at how close the Mexican border was. You go out of town, and there's that chain link fence along there, and the Rio Grande is very narrow and shallow there, and you can look across into Mexico. And Mexican students commute to Texas and Southernmost University, which is right there, right next door to where we were staying. So I figured, you know, I wanted to do a suspense, romantic suspense. So I did some research into Border Patrol and what it entails. And there's a lot of research out there. And I did not want to go, most people think about the border as it's illegal Mexicans coming in, taking jobs or whatever. And that, I purposely did not make that my focus in my books. A lot of times there are homegrown problems in the 2 books. Each one, they had to go into Mexico for whatever. One, they're going undercover. The other, she is taken. Her partner, her new partner, does something stupid, and she's kidnapped and taken because the terrorist group that took her is trying to do an exchange. But it all started with me being in Brownsville, Texas for the winter and looking at how close the border was.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the actual books and as far as like the characters and character development. Now, I believe you had mentioned earlier that they're not necessarily a series, they just kind of take place on the border. Are there different characters, the same characters?
Yeah, different characters. Okay. They're all, the main characters are Border Patrol agents, but the books do not overlap. The third one that has not been published brings back one of the agent's secondary character from the first book. But you don't have to read them in any order. They're not connected, they're standalone.
I see. Well, tell us a little bit about, like, which is the first one that you wrote? Did you write Border Love or Border Danger?
Border Love. And
Border
when
Love.
I looked at that and then looked at Border Danger, when you look at the cover of Border Love, it looks like that should be the one that says Border Danger because the guy's got the gun.
Right.
And the other one should be Border Love. But Border Danger was the first one. And it opens with a character who's on patrol, and she comes across some illegal immigrants trying to come in, and she apprehends a young teenage girl. And she's really torn between arresting this child who got separated from her family and send her back. So she's having, these 2 are inspirational romantic suspense. So she's torn between what they do and whether or not that's the right thing to do. So she wrestles with that.
I see. Now that's Border Love.
That's Border Love.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Tell us a little bit about Border Danger.
Border Danger, she was a former SWAT member in the police force, and she went down to Brownsville, Texas, to join the Border Patrol.
Now this is a different
character.
Okay.
Different character. This is Nita. And while she's at the academy, her main instructor has an accident and somebody else is pulled in. And the guy has issues, Craig has issues, but he's really rough on them, and some of the people who are training leave because he's so tough on them. But she sticks it out because she says she's hard-headed enough to stick it out. But it opens with her hobbling back from one of the exercises and how she's beat. And at the end of that, one of the scenes, she says, Craig doesn't know how lucky he is that I'm a Christian. But they are later paired together to go undercover because, again, one of the main problems with reality, one of the main problems is not the illegal immigrants coming in to take jobs, but it's the drugs that are coming over And they're usually brought up from Colombia, from further south, and brought through Mexico, and that's how they get across the border. But crossing is a very lucrative business in Mexico. Along their border, they have vendors who sell backpacks, a map, and a bottle of water, and they take the people to a spot where they can probably get across. It's dangerous because the map is not accurate.
Right.
And when you get to Arizona, and the Border Patrol is up there, the people think if they go across, it's like a short distance to town, which it isn't. And while we were down and I was doing research, there was 1 month where they found 26 bodies in the Arizona desert.
Oh my goodness.
Because they only had one bottle of water. You know, they died of thirst out there in the desert. So, you know, it's very serious. But once they get into town, you can't tell them from the others who are in town.
Now, I'm intrigued. Now, when you were doing your research for the books, at the beginning, did you intend for the books to somewhat be standalone, or then after you wrote your first book, when you were going to write your second book, like, you know what, I think I'm just going to kind of start from scratch, or did from the very beginning?
I meant for them to be standalone,
okay.
Because if they're not standalone, then you've got to remember what you did in the first one.
I see.
In order to tie it together. And I'm stupid enough not to work from a plan. I don't have an outline. Even when I was in school, I didn't work from an outline. When I had to turn in an outline, I did the paper first and then did the outline.
I see.
But when I get an idea, you know, I get an idea, the general idea, and then I focus it on where I'm going to start. And then I take it from there. I know how it's going to end, but I don't know how the character is going to get to that ending until I go along.
Right.
To find it.
And for your third book, you said you're going to bring back one of the characters from Border Love?
From Border Love.
You're going to bring back one of the characters?
Right. That was her partner did something stupid.
Okay.
But he has changed, you know, he's learned, he's matured, he was a young guy.
So how far do you plan on taking the Border series?
I think that's the last one.
That'll be the last one?
Border Trouble will be the last one.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell us about what's in a name. I find, obviously, you know, we find the subject matter for what's in a name, particularly, I guess, time sensitive for the times that we're in right now. Tell us a little bit about.
Because that's where it came from.
Okay.
What happened in reality, in the news story, a young man was picked up by Homeland Security because of his name. And they discovered that he was not the one they were looking for.
Right.
It was just that the name was the same. So I jumped on that idea, and I gave us a genius graduate student who's coming from the library. His name is Takim L. And that's the kind, you know, that would be on the watch list. And he is picked up as he's leaving the library by a government agency. I didn't name Homeland Security. He's picked up. And they question him because he matches the name.
Right.
And they don't find any information, of course, because they have the wrong guy. And they're moving him to another location so higher-ups can question him. And while they're moving him, an extremist group attacks the agents, kills the agents, and grabs Takim. And that's the point where the main characters come in. They are assigned to rescue him and to take down the extremist group.
Wow, that sounds like a really exciting book. So as far as, now we know that you did research with the Border Patrol for Border Love and Border Danger. Mm-hmm. Did you do any specific research for What's in a Name as well?
Not really. It takes place in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia,
yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't have to do that much there. And then it moves from Philadelphia to the Pocono Mountains because that's where they end up taking him. And the agents go up there and they go undercover as a young couple up there.
Okay, and the characters from What's in a Name are completely separate from the Border series?
Oh, definitely.
So
the
it's
whole
totally
story,
different...
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've gone a whole different direction for that.
Okay. And is that a love story, a romance story as well, or?
Well, they are romance. I probably should have said suspense with romantic elements. Now, the border books are inspirational romantic suspense. This is just romantic suspense. What's in the name is just romantic suspense. And the character, Takim El, is not the main character. He's the focus.
Oh.
But the main characters are the agents that are assigned to rescue him.
Oh, I like that twist.
Yeah.
I really like that twist. So, what type of feedback are you getting? What type of reception are you getting from What's in the Name and the Border series?
I'm getting good feedback from it. What's in the Name? Somebody posted the first 2 pages on the site, and on my Facebook, I've gotten reaction from Facebook. I want to know what happened. Why was somebody looking in the window? And I said, well, read the book to find out.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you actually spoken to any Border Patrol agents that have read the Border series? And
No, I haven't. When we were there, sometimes you can take a tour of the Border Patrol Academy, but it's only certain times of year, and that wasn't available, wasn't
Right.
a possibility there. But there are several sites. There's a website for potential Border Patrol agents, and it tells them what do you take to the academy, what's the setup there, and gives them the whole background of
that's
going
really
there.
intriguing.
Yeah, yeah. And then there are other sites that actually tells things that happened with the agents, and so these might trigger an idea. I didn't use them, but it might trigger, just to give you a background for your characters.
I see. So there's one more book left in the Border series. Is What's in the Name, is that going to be a series, or is that just standalone?
No, that's a standalone.
That's a standalone? Okay. Other than the last Border book, do you have other manuscripts in production or things that you're working on?
I've got 3 other completed books. 2 of them are historicals. One is based on my great-grandfather, Dade, and great-grandmother Hannah, and it's called Hannah's Freedom. And somebody is looking at it, and it starts with Dade buying her on that auction block. She was raised by her white father as a white child, and she was young, probably about 10, when her father goes somewhere and he marries someone and brings her back. And when her father dies in an accident thrown from a horse, then the true colors of her stepmother come out. And they have battles back and forth, and finally the stepmother puts her on the auction block.
Right.
And that's where it opens up, where Dade finds her, and she's got green eyes, and that reminds him of his deceased wife.
Oh.
He thinks of her and how young she is. So he buys her to rescue her. And it goes from there. They end up, he gives her freedom, gives her a choice later on of going or staying, and she chooses to stay.
Right.
But they have, the Civil War is in there, and the reaction of the townspeople, because Dade is determined that his family will be accepted by the people there. And it takes it from there. And the other one is named Love Thine Enemy. This is also based on an ancient ancestor who used to spy. And my father used to tell me she was known for spying for whatever side would pay her. That's what he said.
Spy for hire.
She was married to a Robert Greenhowe, and there was a Greenhowe store in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so she's a slave woman, and her mother tells her she doesn't like the way that and this is at the height of the Civil War, the master's looking at her, so her mother talks her into leaving. She disguises herself as a male and leaves, and she's picked up by the Union forces. And when they discover that she's a female, they think they have caught the spy that they were looking for. And it goes from there. He's going to take her to to his headquarters, and they come across a battle, and she has to decide, is she going to leave him because he's wounded, or will she stay?
Wow.
So that's there.
Those sounds like some amazing books that you're working on, so we're really excited. Now, for our viewers who are interested in learning more about you and your books, do you have a website?
Yes, I do. It's www.alicewootson.net.
Okay, and if someone wants to maybe send you a message, a personal message to maybe ask you some questions about your books, how can they reach out to you?
My email address is agwriter@email.com. It's agwriter@email.com.
Great. Well, we're almost out of time. Is there anything that you want to share with any aspiring authors or writers who are watching this interview?
Tell them to keep trying, because if they have an idea, it's going to keep bugging them until they write it. I have one now bugging me, a secondary character from Aloha Love. I promised him his story, and I haven't finished it yet. And Nate keeps bothering me. But they just keep at it, because usually you're writing. Writers don't, well, romance writers don't get rich, except maybe for Nora Roberts, a couple others.
Right.
But you really can't help it, because the story's going to bother you until you write it. So you just do the best you can with writing. Take whatever workshops you can. Get as much training as you can to hone your craft.
That's excellent advice. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show, and we look forward to future books and having you again on the set as well.
Thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate it.
And thank you for tuning in to For Book Lovers Only. If you want to order copies of Alice's books, please visit www.forbookloversonly.com. And while you're online, you can also visit the Village at www.villageconnector.com. My name is Rob Brown. I've been your host today. Tune in next time. We have another great author and another great book. And until next time, remember, if you love books, we have a home for you. Take care.